I want you to look at these images on the screen: a bowl of cereal, a glass of orange juice, a piece of toast. This is the breakfast that 3 generations of Americans were told was the responsible, heart healthy, doctor approved way to start the day. And there is a very good chance it is sitting on your table every single morning. Now, I need to tell you something that the food industry has spent decades making sure you never hear. For the brain over 65, this breakfast is not neutral. It is not just not ideal. The research coming out of some of the most respected neurology institutions in the world is showing that this specific combination, eaten consistently morning after morning, is one of the most powerful drivers of something doctors are calling silent memory loss. Cognitive decline that happens gradually, quietly, with no dramatic symptoms, until one day you or the people around you notice that something has changed. And by that point, months or years of damage have already been done. Today, I'm going to show you the 5 breakfast foods most responsible for this, including the #1 offender that 87% of seniors eat without a second thought. I'll show you the science, I'll show you real patient stories, and I'll give you exact replacements for every single food on this list, because this is entirely fixable. And it starts tomorrow morning. Here's what you need to understand about your brain and food. Your brain makes up about 2% of your body weight, but it consumes 20% of your total daily energy. It is the most metabolically demanding organ in your body, and it is almost entirely dependent on what you feed it, especially first thing in the morning after a full night of fasting. Now, the aging brain, specifically the brain over 65, has a reduced ability to buffer the effects of poor nutrition. Think of it like a phone battery that's been through 1,000 charge cycles. It still works, but it is more sensitive to stress, slower to recover, and quicker to drain. When you consistently feed that brain a high sugar, high glycemic, nutrient-stripped breakfast, you trigger a process called neuroinflammation, chronic, low-grade inflammation inside brain tissue. You don't feel neuroinflammation the way you feel a sprained ankle. There's no sharp pain. Instead, it shows up as brain fog, slower recall, difficulty finding words, trouble concentrating. And over time, over months and years of daily inflammatory breakfast signals, the hippocampus, which is your brain's memory center, begins to lose volume. Research from the University of California, Los Angeles found that dietary patterns high in refined sugar and processed carbohydrates were directly associated with reduced hippocampal volume and poor memory performance in adults over 60. Your breakfast is either feeding your memory or shrinking it every single morning. In this video, I'm walking you through the 5 breakfast foods most damaging to memory in people over 65, ranked from serious to critical. For each one, I'll explain exactly what it does inside your brain, give you the research behind it, tell you a real patient story, and give you a specific swap you can make tomorrow morning. #2 on this list is going to surprise you because it comes in a package that says heart healthy right on the label. And the marketing around it is so convincing that even some physicians recommend it. And #1, the food responsible for the title of this video is something I want you to hear in full before you form an opinion, because the mechanism connecting it to memory loss is not what most people expect. Let's get into it. But first, tell me in the comments, what does your typical breakfast look like right now? I genuinely want to know, because it helps me understand what this community is dealing with. Drop it below and drop your age if you're comfortable. It helps me tailor future videos for you. Okay, let's start with #5. Food #5, margarine and vegetable spreads. Let's start with something that sat on breakfast tables across America for 50 years as a supposedly healthier alternative to butter. Margarine and its modern relatives. Many vegetable-based spreads and cooking sprays were built on partially hydrogenated oils. The process of hydrogenation creates trans fats, and even today, products that claim 0 trans fats on the label are legally allowed to contain up to 0.5 grams per serving. If you use 2 or 3 servings, and most people do, you are consuming a meaningful amount. Here is what trans fats do to your brain. Your brain is approximately 60% fat. The quality of fat in your diet directly determines the quality of fat available to build and maintain brain cell membranes, myelin sheaths, the insulation around your nerve fibers, and synaptic connections. Trans fats are structurally abnormal fats that your brain cannot properly use. They compete with and displace the healthy omega-3 fats your neurons need to function. A study published in Neurology, the Journal of the American Academy of Neurology, found that adults with the highest trans fat intake had word memory scores that were significantly lower than those with the lowest intake. The researchers estimated that a high trans fat diet was associated with remembering approximately 11 fewer words on a memory test, a measurable, consistent gap. Beyond memory, trans fats are powerfully pro-inflammatory. They directly fuel the neuroinflammation process I described earlier. Patient story. Raymond, 68, a retired contractor from Alabama, had been spreading margarine on his toast and using vegetable oil spray to cook his eggs every morning for over 20 years. He came to his doctor complaining of increasing difficulty remembering conversations. Specifically, he said he could hear someone talking to him and 30 minutes later have almost no memory of what was said. His physician, working through a detailed dietary intake, flagged the consistent trans fat exposure and recommended switching to real butter in small amounts and cooking with olive oil. Within 4 months, Raymond's wife told the doctor that Raymond was back. He was retaining conversations, remembering appointments, and seemed sharper overall. Your action step: check every spread and cooking product in your kitchen tomorrow morning. If you see the words partially hydrogenated anywhere in the ingredients, regardless of what the front label says, replace it. Use real butter in small amounts or extra virgin olive oil. Your brain knows how to use real fats. It does not know what to do with engineered ones. Food number 4, fruit juice, including orange juice. This one hurts people because they genuinely believe they are doing something good. Orange juice has been a breakfast staple for so long and marketed so aggressively as a source of vitamin C and natural goodness that questioning it feels almost radical. But I want to show you what actually happens in your body and specifically your brain within 30 minutes of drinking a glass. When you eat a whole orange, the fiber in the fruit slows the absorption of its natural sugars. Your blood glucose rises gradually. Your insulin responds in a measured way. The sugar enters your bloodstream at a rate your brain can use cleanly. When you drink orange juice, the fiber is gone. What remains is essentially a concentrated sugar solution. A standard 8-ounce glass of orange juice contains around 21 to 26 grams of sugar, nearly the same as a can of soda, and with no fiber to slow absorption, it hits your bloodstream rapidly. For the brain over 65, that rapid glucose spike followed by an equally rapid insulin response and subsequent crash creates exactly the metabolic chaos we want to avoid. And repeated daily sugar spiking accelerates a process called glycation, where sugar molecules attach to and damage proteins throughout the body, including in brain tissue. Research published in the British Medical Journal analyzing data from over 13,000 adults found that higher consumption of sugary drinks, including 100% fruit juice, was associated with smaller total brain volume and poorer episodic memory. Fruit juice was not exempt from the findings. Patient story. Helen, 71, a retired librarian from Minnesota, was meticulous about her health. She walked every day, took her medications faithfully, and drank 2 glasses of orange juice every morning because she believed it was protecting her. Her neurologist, reviewing her dietary log after she reported increasing word-finding difficulty, immediately identified the juice. Helen was skeptical but agreed to replace it with water and eat a whole orange instead for 90 days. Her word finding improved noticeably. She told her doctor, "I feel like my sentences are coming back to me." Your action step: tomorrow morning, put the juice down and eat the fruit instead. A whole orange, whole berries, whole apple slice. The fiber is not a bonus, it is the mechanism that makes fruit safe for your brain. Juice without fiber is sugar water with a marketing budget. And here is the one I warned you about in the teaser. The one that says heart healthy right on the package. Let me be precise here because this distinction matters. Plain whole rolled oats cooked slowly with no added sugar are genuinely beneficial for brain and cardiovascular health. They contain beta-glucan fiber, B vitamins, and have a low to moderate glycemic index. I am not talking about those. I am talking about instant oatmeal. Flavored oat packets, the kind you pour boiling water over and eat in 3 minutes, the kind that comes in flavors like maple brown sugar, peaches and cream, and cinnamon roll. The processing required to make oats instant strips the fiber structure that gives whole oats their slow digesting quality. What remains is a high glycemic, rapidly absorbed carbohydrate, and then manufacturers add sugar, artificial flavoring, and sodium on top of it. A single packet of a popular flavored instant oatmeal brand contains up to 13 grams of added sugar. Many seniors eat 2 packets. That is a 26-gram sugar hit before 8 a.m., wrapped in packaging that says it's good for your heart. For the aging brain, this triggers the same glucose spike, insulin surge, and subsequent crash as juice or candy. And consumed daily, it drives the same pattern of insulin resistance in brain tissue that researchers are now linking directly to Alzheimer's risk. A study from Alzheimer's and Dementia, the Journal of the Alzheimer's Association, found that dietary patterns characterized by high glycemic index foods were associated with a significantly accelerated rate of cognitive decline in adults over 65, independent of other risk factors. Patient story: Lorraine, 67, a retired nurse from Ohio, ate 2 packets of maple brown sugar instant oatmeal every morning. She chose it specifically because it was labeled heart healthy and she thought she was making a responsible choice. When she mentioned increasing difficulty concentrating to her physician, a continuous glucose monitor revealed her breakfast was spiking her blood sugar to 178 milligrams per deciliter, approaching diabetic territory every single morning. Her doctor switched her to steel-cut oats with a handful of walnuts and no added sugar. Lorraine's morning concentration improved within weeks and her fasting glucose stabilized within 2 months. Your action step: read the label on your oatmeal right now. If it is instant, if it is flavored, if it lists sugar in the first 5 ingredients, replace it. Steel-cut oats or thick-rolled oats cooked with water, topped with walnuts, a handful of berries, and a sprinkle of cinnamon. That version of oatmeal is genuinely protective for your brain. The instant version is not. Quick pause: if this is landing for you, please hit subscribe. I cover senior brain and heart health every single week with the kind of specific research-backed information that tends to fall through the cracks of a standard doctor's appointment. Hit the bell too so you're notified when new videos drop, and if someone at your breakfast table needs to hear this, send it to them. Okay, we're going to the top 2, stay with me. Food number 2, commercial breakfast cereals. Cereal is perhaps the most successful nutritional misdirection in modern food history. And I want to be clear, I'm not just talking about the obviously sugary cereals with cartoon mascots. I'm talking about the ones marketed specifically to adults, the bran flakes. The whole grain cornflakes, the multi-grain clusters, the ones with good source of fiber and fortified with vitamins on the box. Here's the reality. The majority of commercial breakfast cereals, including the ones marketed as healthy adult options, are ultra-processed foods with a glycemic index comparable to or higher than white bread. The whole grain on the label often refers to a flour that has been so finely milled that its fiber structure has been destroyed. The vitamins listed are synthetic additions sprayed on during manufacturing, not naturally occurring nutrients your body absorbs efficiently. When researchers at Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health analyzed data from the Nurses' Health Study and Health Professionals Follow-up Study, tracking over 78,000 adults over multiple decades, they found that higher consumption of ultra-processed foods, the category that includes commercial breakfast cereals, was associated with a 28% faster rate of global cognitive decline and a 25% faster rate of executive function decline. 28% faster. Not a trivial difference. And for seniors who are already in the age window where cognitive reserve matters most, where the difference between protected and accelerated decline can be measured in years of independence and quality of life, that number is significant. Patient story. Walter, 73, a retired engineer from Pennsylvania, had eaten a bowl of brown flakes with skim milk every morning for 30 years. He was proud of his discipline. His son brought him in after noticing that Walter was repeating questions during conversations, sometimes within the same hour. Walter's cognitive testing showed early-stage mild cognitive impairment. His neurologist overhauled his breakfast. Out went the cereal. In came 2 eggs scrambled with spinach, half an avocado, and a small bowl of mixed berries. At Walter's 6-month follow-up, his scores on memory and attention tasks have measurably improved, not declined further, as his trajectory had suggested. His neurologist told the family that dietary change was the most impactful intervention they had made. Your action step tomorrow morning, look at the cereal box. Turn it around to the nutrition label, look at the sugar grams, look at the ingredients and count how many you cannot pronounce. If it has more than 5 grams of added sugar, or if the first ingredient is any form of flour or corn, regardless of what the front of the box says, it is working against your brain. Replace it with real food, eggs, nuts, berries, Greek yogurt with no added sugar, foods your brain can actually use. Food number 1, white bread and refined grain products. The daily habit destroying memory quietly. This is the one, not because white bread is the most dramatic food on this list, but because it is the most invisible threat, the one so normalized, so present, so deeply embedded in the senior breakfast routine that it never gets questioned. Toast, a bread roll, an English muffin, a bagel, white or wheat sandwich bread. For the majority of people over 65, some form of refined grain product is on the breakfast table every single morning. The 87% figure in today's title comes from dietary survey data, and when researchers looked at consistent daily refined grain consumption in seniors, they found a pattern that was, in the words of one lead researcher, alarmingly consistent with the cognitive decline trajectory. Here is the mechanism, and this is the part 1 want you to really hear. White bread and refined grain products have a glycemic index between 70 and 100. For context, pure glucose, the standard for maximum blood sugar impact, has a glycemic index of 100. White bread is essentially in the same category. When you eat it on an empty stomach, first thing in the morning after an overnight fast, the blood sugar response is at its most extreme. But here is what is happening deeper than blood sugar. Refined grains are stripped of their bran and germ, the parts of the grain that contain fiber, B vitamins, vitamin E, magnesium, and zinc. These are not optional nutrients for your brain. B vitamins, specifically B6, B9, and B12, are essential for the production of neurotransmitters. Magnesium is required for synaptic plasticity, your brain's ability to form and strengthen new memories. Zinc is critical for hippocampal function. When you replace whole grain with refined grain, you are not just adding sugar, you are removing the raw materials your brain needs to maintain its memory infrastructure. And you are doing it at the most neurologically sensitive meal of the day. A landmark study from Rush University Medical Center, part of the ongoing MIND-D diet research, found that higher consumption of refined grains was among the strongest dietary predictors Alzheimer's disease development, with adults in the highest consumption category showing significantly accelerated cognitive decline over a 10-year follow-up period. And critically, this was not about people who ate badly across the board. Many participants in the high refined grain group considered themselves healthy eaters. They just had toast for breakfast every morning. Now here is the part that gives me genuine hope to share with you. The same research that identified refined grains as a top predictor of cognitive decline also identified what replaces them as one of the most powerful protective factors. Adults who switched to whole grain, real whole grain, not marketing label whole grain, showed measurably slower cognitive decline. Some showed improvement in memory scores. The brain, even at 65, even at 70, retains significant capacity to respond to nutritional change. Asian story, Evelyn, 69, a retired school teacher from Georgia, sharp, organized, proud of her mental acuity, came to her physician because she had started losing her train of thought mid-sentence. She said it felt like the words were there a moment ago and then just gone. She was otherwise healthy, no significant medical history. Her physician did a detailed dietary interview. Evelyn's breakfast every morning for 40 years, 2 slices of white toast with margarine and a glass of orange juice. Her physician looked at her and said quietly, "Evelyn, your breakfast is 3 of the 5 foods I'd most want to remove from a senior's diet for brain health." They replaced her breakfast together. 2 eggs, 1 slice of whole grain sourdough, real sourdough, fermented, lower glycemic, a handful of walnuts and water with a whole orange on the side. No juice, no margarine. At her 3-month follow-up, Evelyn told her doctor that the mid-sentence word loss had almost completely stopped. At 6 months, her daughter called the office to say her mother seemed like herself again. Same woman, same brain, different breakfast. Your action step, 3 steps. Step 1. Tomorrow morning, remove the white bread, the white toast, the bagel, the English muffin from your breakfast. Not forever if that feels overwhelming. Start with 5 mornings a week. Step 2. Replace it with one of the following. A slice of genuine whole grain or sourdough bread. Check that whole grain flour is the first ingredient, or better yet, skip grain at breakfast entirely and lead with protein. 2 eggs. A handful of nuts, full-fat Greek yogurt. Step 3. Add 1 brain-protective food to your breakfast starting tomorrow. Walnuts, which contain the highest omega-3 content of any nut and have been shown in clinical trials to directly support cognitive function. Blueberries, which contain anthocyanins that cross the blood-brain barrier and reduce neuroinflammation. Or a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil on your eggs, one of the most researched neuroprotective dietary compounds in the world. This is not a diet. This is not a deprivation plan. This is swapping 5 foods for 5 better ones. And the research says your brain will notice the difference, sometimes within weeks. You now know what most people don't, that the breakfast most seniors were raised to eat, the cereal, the juice, the toast, the instant oatmeal, the margarine, is not protecting their brain. For the aging brain specifically, it is quietly working against it, morning after morning, year after year. And you know the alternative, a choice tomorrow morning, not a hard one, not an expensive one, a simple one. The choice of what goes on your plate before 9 a.m. Make it eggs, make it walnuts, make it berries and real oats and water instead of juice. Make it a breakfast your brain can actually use. Save this video, write down the 5 foods, put it on your refrigerator if you need to, and send it to someone you love who is over 65, because the person most likely to benefit from this information is probably not looking for it, but you are, and now you can pass it on. That is how this community works, and it matters more than you know. Next week, I need to tell you about something that came up in the comments after our last 2 videos and I cannot ignore it. Several of you mentioned that you are taking medications your doctor prescribed, medications you trust, and that since starting them, you have noticed changes in your memory, your mood, and your sharpness that you assumed were just aging. They may not be aging. Next week, I am covering the specific prescription medications most commonly linked to memory side effects in seniors over 65, including one category of drug that is prescribed to nearly a third of older Americans and carries a memory warning that most patients are never told about. Subscribe and turn on the bell, because that video could change a conversation you have with your doctor, and that conversation could change everything. I'm Dr. Grace Chen. Protect your brain. I'll see you next week.